The first thing people notice about the house is the smell. Not rot, not mold, something older, something dry and bitter, like dust that's been breathing for a very long time. The house sits 10 miles outside of Marfa, Texas, where the land flattens out into a sun-bleached nothing, and the wind never really stops moving. It's a one-story ranch place. Pale yellow paint burned almost white by decades of sun. Windows darkened like blind eyes. No mailbox. No numbers. Just a dirt drive curling off Highway 67 like it's a shame to be seen. I found it because the county sent me. My job was simple, at least on paper. Inspect unclaimed properties. Document condition. Flag hazards. I'd done it for years. Empty houses don't scare me. Most of them are just time capsules. Couches with the spring showing. Calendars still turned to a year nobody wants to remember. Family photos turned face down by squatters who don't want to look at who lived there before. This one was different before I even stepped inside. The front door wasn't locked. It was sealed. 3 long boards had been nailed across it from the outside. Not sloppy. Not rushed. Each nail sunk deep, evenly spaced. Someone had taken their time. And over the boards, written in faded black marker, were words that had been gone over again and again until the wood had absorbed them. Do not open. Do not clean. Do not stay. There was no signature. No date. I called it in. Dispatch didn't have a file on it. No reports. No owner. Property taxes unpaid since 2006. No fire. No foreclosure. Just abandoned. County told me to proceed. It took effort to pry the boards loose. The nails screamed when they came out, sharp and high, like the house didn't want to be uncovered. When the door finally opened, the smell hit me full in the face. Dry, bitter, like old paper left too close to a heat vent. The air inside was warm, despite it being February. No electricity, no gas, still warm. The living room was empty except for a single chair in the center of the floor, not facing the TV space, not facing the window, facing the hallway. The carpet beneath it was worn down to the padding, a dark oval like someone had been sitting there a long, long time. I took photos, wrote notes. My hands were shaking, and I didn't know why. The walls were covered in faint marks, not writing, more like smudges. Handprints, maybe. Hundreds of them, layered on top of each other, all facing the same direction, toward the hallway. I moved deeper into the house. Every room had been entered completely. No furniture, no fixtures pulled out, no light bulbs missing, just cleared, except the floors. The floors were scratched, long grooves, as if something heavy had been dragged from room to room, over and over, back and forth. Some scratches overlapped so much the wood was shredded. In the kitchen, I found the sink running. No water, just the handle turned all the way to the left, frozen there. Under it sat a bowl filled with dirt. Not dust, grave dirt, dark and clotted. The hallway felt wrong, narrower than it should have been. The air grew thicker as I walked, pressing against my ears. Halfway down, I noticed the ceiling was lower, not built that way, but sagging, drooping like it was tired. At the end of the hall was a bedroom door. It was the only door in the house that was closed. It had more writing on it, this time carved directly into the wood, deep enough that splinters curled outward. It learns your shape. It practices. Don't watch it practice. I should have left then. I didn't. The door opened easily. Inside, the room was small and bare. No bed. No closet door. Just a large rectangular outline on the floor, darker than the rest of the wood. Something had been there. Against the far wall stood a full-length mirror. The glass was cloudy, old, warped. I stepped closer, heart pounding. And that's when I realized my reflection wasn't keeping up with me. It lagged, just slightly. When I lifted my hand, the reflection hesitated before copying the motion. When I leaned closer, it leaned slower. Its eyes were wrong. Too focused, like it was studying me. Behind the reflection, faintly, I could see shapes moving. Across the floor, impressions, forming where nothing touched them. Like someone laying down, sitting up, crawling, practicing. I backed away, breath ragged, and the reflection smiled. I did not. I ran. I don't remember making it to the car. I remember the boards slamming back onto the door behind me, nails driving themselves in, one by one, sharp and final. I filed the report. Hazardous. Unsafe. Recommended demolition. The county marked it as inspected. 3 weeks later, a new house appeared on that land. Same color, same shape, different address. And every now and then, when I pass empty houses on lonely Texas roads, I catch my reflection in dark windows, watching me a little too closely, like it's still learning how to move. Everyone in Medina County knew about the Flores place, but nobody agreed on what was wrong with it. Some said it was squatters. Others said drugs. A few old-timers at the feed store claimed it was cursed land. Same way people say a road or a lake is cursed. When too many bad things happen, they're too close together. The truth was quieter and worse. The house sat alone at the end of County Road 451, surrounded by mesquite and dry grass that never seemed to grow tall, no matter how wet the season was. A pale blue farmhouse, 2 stories. Wraparound porch sagging like tired shoulders. Empty for at least 8 years. No lights. No cars. No sound. Except sometimes, at night, people swore they could hear furniture moving. I didn't go there because I was brave. I went because my brother Daniel disappeared 2 miles from that house, and the sheriff ran out of interest before I ran out of hope. Daniel had been driving back from San Antonio late one Friday. His truck was found parked cleanly on the shoulder, keys still in the ignition. Phone on the seat, engine cold. No skid marks. No signs of a struggle. Just abandoned, like he'd stepped out for a moment and forgot to come back. The Flores place was the closest structure. I parked across the road at dusk. Cicadas screamed in the trees. The air smelled like hot dirt and iron. From the outside, the house looked empty in the normal way. Broken porch boards. Missing shutters, weeds choking the steps. The front door hung open a few inches, swaying slightly in the breeze. I called Daniel's name. The house answered. Not with a voice, with a sound. A chair scraping against wood, slow and deliberate, coming from inside. Every instinct told me to leave. I went in anyway. The living room was stripped bare. No couch, no TV, no pictures. Just outlines on the walls where things used to hang. The floor was covered in dust except for a wide, clean path worn through it, leading toward the stairs. Foot traffic. A lot of it. The smell hit me then. Stale sweat and something sweet underneath. Like spoiled fruit. The temperature dropped the farther I moved inside. My breath fogged slightly, though it was still warm outside. At the base of the stairs sat a pile of shoes. Men's shoes. Women's shoes. Work boots. Sandals. A child's sneaker with a cartoon dinosaur on the side. Dozens of them. None matched. I recognized Daniel's boots immediately. Brown leather, steel toe. The left one scuffed where he dropped a wrench years back. I picked one up. It was warm. Upstairs, the hallway was narrow and dark. Every door was open except the last one on the right. As I passed each room, I saw signs of living, not squatting, arranging. One room had nothing but a mattress on the floor, stained dark in the center. Another had food cans stacked carefully into towers, labels peeled off. Another was filled wall-to-wall with mirrors of different sizes, all facing inward. I avoided looking at them. The last door was closed. From behind it came a sound I'll never forget, breathing. Multiple breaths, layered together, shallow and patient. I pushed the door open. The room was empty except for furniture arranged in a tight circle. Chairs, stools, dressers, even a refrigerator laid on its side. All facing inward. In the center of the circle was a man. Or what used to be one. He was naked, pale, his body unnaturally thin, skin stretched too tight over bone. His eyes were open but unfocused, mouth working soundlessly. His arms and legs were bent at odd angles, joints swollen and wrong, like they'd been forced into position too many times. Behind him, leaning against the wall, were more people, standing upright, propped, men and women of different ages, all arranged carefully, their limbs bent and twisted to mirror furniture. One woman had her arms locked straight and her back arched, positioned like a lamp. Another man crouched low, knees bent, back flat, a table. They were alive. I know they were because they blinked. Slowly, the man in the center turned his head toward me. His lips trembled, then finally shaped words. "Don't move things," he whispered. "It hates when things move." The house shifted. A deep creak rolled through the walls, like a satisfied sigh. I felt the floor vibrate under my feet. One of the chairs whimpered softly. I saw Daniel then. He was in the corner, crouched unnaturally low, his back flat, hands pressed to the floor. His eyes locked onto mine, wide and wet with terror. He shook his head once. No. The walls began to close in, not visibly, but perceptibly, like the space itself was shrinking. Furniture scraped. Bones popped. Someone screamed, cut off instantly. I ran. Behind me, the house rearranged itself. The stairs twisted under my feet. The living room was different. Furniture stood where there had been none. Shapes hunched and trembling, pretending to be objects. I burst through the front door as it slammed shut behind me, hard enough to rattle the porch. I never went back. The sheriff didn't either. 3 months later, the Flores house burned to the ground in the middle of the night. Electrical fire, they said. Funny, since it never had power. They found no bodies, just piles of shoes. Sometimes, when I walk through furniture stores or old houses, I feel it, the wrongness of chairs placed too carefully, tables angled just so. And I swear, every now and then, something wooden creaks like it's breathing, waiting for me to sit. The house off Lake Meredith Road wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It had burned in 1999, electrical fire. Middle of the night, whole place went up fast. Amarillo Globe ran a short article about it. No casualties. Family moved away. End of story. Except that when my wife and I were driving north towards Sanford one evening, low sun turning the lake copper red, I saw it standing there again. Same roofline. Same slanted chimney. Same dead cottonwood leaning over the fence like it was trying to listen in. I slowed down without meaning to. My wife, Claire, asked what was wrong. I didn't answer. I just stared. The mailbox was there too. Crooked. Rusted. With the name Henderson, barely visible under old flaking paint. That house burned down, I said. Claire frowned. What house? By the time I looked again, the road was empty. Just mesquite, barbed wire, and dust blowing across asphalt. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, curiosity beat common sense. I went back alone. The house was there. Not half-burned. Not rebuilt. Just old. Weathered. Empty-looking. Like it had been waiting. I parked on the shoulder and walked up. The closer I got, the quieter it became. No wind. No insects. Even the lake beyond the trees was still. The front door was open. Inside, the air smelled like old smoke and damp wood. The floor creaked under my weight, loud in the silence. The living room was bare except for scorch. Marks crawling up the walls, black fingerprints, reaching toward the ceiling. The fire had been here. It just hadn't finished. There were footprints in the ash. Bare feet. Child-sized. They led toward the hallway. I followed them, heart thudding. The walls were blistered, paint bubbled like skin after a burn. Family photos still hung crooked, glass cracked but intact. Every photo showed the same thing, a smiling family standing in front of the house. Except in each one, someone was missing. In one photo, the father was gone. In another, the mother. In another, the little boy. In the last photo, no one stood in front of the house at all. Just the house itself. The hallway ended at a closed door. Blackened. Warped. Warm to the touch. From behind it came a sound. Soft. Rhythmic. Breathing. I pushed the door open. The bedroom was untouched by fire. Perfectly preserved. Floral wallpaper. White bedspread. Toys neatly lined against the wall. On the bed sat a boy of about 8, knees pulled to his chest, skin grey with soot. His eyes were wrong, too bright, reflecting light that wasn't there. "You're not supposed to see it yet," he said calmly. "See what?" I whispered. He pointed behind me. I turned. The hallway was gone. In its place was a long, blackened corridor stretching impossibly far. Walls still burning, not with flame, but with heat. Shapes moved inside the walls, pressing outward. Faces forming briefly before melting back into smoke. The boy slid off the bed and stood barefoot on the floor. "The house remembers," he said. "Every time someone notices it, it finishes a little more." "What finishes?" I asked. He smiled. "Burning." The door slammed shut behind me. Heat rushed in instantly, searing my lungs. The walls glowed red. I heard screaming, not loud, but constant, like the sound of wind through cracks. Hands pressed out of the walls, reaching, grasping. The boy stood in the center of the room, unharmed. "They didn't leave," he said. "They stayed when it got hot." The ceiling caught fire. I don't remember escaping. I remember running. I remember the lake air hitting my face, cold and sharp. I remember falling into the dirt and coughing until my chest burned. When I looked back, the house was gone. Just a blackened foundation and a scorched cartonwood stump. Fire crews came. Found nothing. No active fire. No explanation for my burns. Claire says I hallucinated. But sometimes, driving past the lake at sunset, I see it again, standing just at the edge of vision. And every time I notice it, the smoke seems thicker, like it's getting closer to being done. The house on Old Sabinal Road had no address anymore. Mail didn't come there. Utility maps showed nothing but a blank square where the structure should have been. Even Google Earth blurred it, like someone had taken a thumb and smeared the image on purpose. But locals knew where it was. They just didn't like to talk about it. I learned about it from a man who was dying. His name was Earl McKenna, 76, liver cancer. I was doing HVAC work on his place outside Uvalde, replacing an old unit that rattled like it wanted to tear itself free. He watched me the whole time, eyes sunken, skin yellowed, the smell of sickness clinging to the room. When I finished, he told me not to take Old Sabinal Road home. I laughed it off. Asked him why. He said, because houses remember better than people, and that one remembers everything. Before I could ask more, he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. His nails dug in. "If you ever go inside," he whispered, "don't touch what looks like it's waiting for you." Earl died 2 days later. 3 weeks after that, my truck broke down right where Old Sabinal Road cuts through the brush. Radiator hose split. No signal. Sun dropping fast. I told myself I'd walk to the nearest ranch, but when I crested the small rise, I saw the house. It sat back from the road, half hidden by twisted oak trees. 1 story, limestone foundation. Screened-in porch sagging inward like it was tired of holding itself up. The windows were intact but dark, reflecting nothing. The porch light was on. That should have been impossible. I stepped onto the porch. The boards didn't creak. They felt solid. Maintained. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air was cool and still. The smell was faint but unmistakable. Old cologne. Dust, and something sour underneath. The living room was fully furnished, but everything was covered in white sheets, carefully draped like someone had just stepped away. I called out. No answer. The sheets moved slightly, as if breathing. I told myself it was air circulation, nerves, anything but what my gut was screaming. On the wall above the fireplace hung a clock. It ticked loudly, but the hands didn't move. I walked deeper into the house. Each room felt occupied, not by people, but by impressions. Dent in a couch cushion beneath a sheet. A rocking chair gently swaying, though nothing touched it. A dining table set for 6. Plates and silverware arranged neatly beneath thin fabric. In the hallway, family photos lined the walls. They showed the same house, over decades. Same angles. Same porch. Same trees. The people in the photos never changed. Same man. Same woman. Same 2 children. They didn't age. In later photos, there were more people standing with them. Neighbors. Friends. Strangers. All smiling. All familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. I recognized one face. Earl McKenna. He stood at the edge of a photo taken sometime in the 1980s, smiling stiffly, eyes wide. In the next photo, he stood closer. In the one after that, he was inside the house. In the last photo, he was alone. The hallway ended at a door I knew I shouldn't open. It was slightly ajar. Light spilled out, warm and yellow. From inside came a sound like fabric being folded. I pushed the door open. The room was a bedroom. A large bed sat in the center, perfectly made. On it lay a white sheet, folded neatly into the shape of a human body. Not covering a body. Shaped like one. Arms crossed. Legs straight. Head shape clearly defined. Around the room were more shapes, stacked carefully against the walls. Some small, some large, some bent strangely, like they hadn't fit right the first time. I understood then. The house didn't kill people. It kept them, preserved them the only way it knew how. Behind me, the door closed. The sheet on the bed twitched. I backed away, heart hammering, and my heel caught on something soft. I looked down. Another sheet lay crumpled at my feet, partially unfolded. A hand shape pressed outward from inside it. Fingers flexed, slow and desperate. I ran. The house resisted me. Hallways stretched. Doorways narrowed. Sheets slid off furniture and rose into the air, drifting toward me like pale ghosts. I burst through the front door and fell off the porch into the dirt. The porch light snapped off behind me. The house was dark again. Empty looking. Normal. My truck started on the first try. I never told anyone what I saw. A month later, I drove past Old Sabinal Road again in daylight. There was nothing there, just a bare patch of land and a concrete slab. But in my rearview mirror, for just a second, I saw white fabric in the back seat, neatly folded, waiting for me to notice it. The realtor called it a wind property. That was the polite Texas way of saying nobody stayed long enough to unpack. The house sat outside of Lubbock, just past where the paved road turns into Caliche and the land opens wide enough to make you feel small, flat, exposed, the kind of place where the sky presses down on you and the wind never stops talking. A pale brick ranch house built sometime in the late 70s, with a storm cellar out back and a weather vane on the roof that never pointed north. I bought it cheap after my divorce. Didn't ask many questions. Didn't want history. I wanted quiet. The first night I slept there, the wind woke me up. Not howling. Not whistling through cracks. It sounded like someone breathing against the walls. Slow, steady, intentional. The windows rattled just enough to make me uneasy, like fingers tapping glass. I told myself it was normal. By the third night, I noticed the house breathed back. When the wind outside gusted hard, the walls flexed inward. When it died down, the house exhaled, a low creak running through the beams. It was subtle, almost comforting, like a living thing settling in beside you. The noises always came from the same place, the spare bedroom. It was empty except for a single floor vent near the wall. No furniture, no closet door. The air coming from the vent was cold, even when the heater was on. I put my ear close once and heard wind moving through it, but wrong. Not rushing, circling, like it was trapped and pacing. The smell started after a week. Dry dirt, old wood, and something metallic, faint but sharp, like blood left too long in the sun. I found the first note taped inside a kitchen cabinet. It was yellowed, edges curled, written in shaky handwriting. Do not listen too long. It learns your breath. I laughed. Nervous, but still a laugh. Old owners messing with the next tenant. Texas humor. That night, the wind spoke. Not words. Patterns. 3 long gusts. 1 short. A pause. Then again. I woke up sitting straight in bed, heart racing, because I realized the rhythm matched my breathing. The next day, I found more notes. Inside the breaker box. Under the bathroom sink. Tucked behind the return air grate. All written by different hands. Different ink. Same message, reworded again and again. It comes through empty spaces. Don't answer it. Don't hum. Don't count. The spare bedroom door started closing on its own. I propped it open with a chair. Found the chair tipped over later. Dragged a few inches closer to the vent. The carpet fibers were pressed flat, like something heavy had leaned against it. I called the realtor. She went quiet when I mentioned the room. Said the previous owners claimed air pressure issues. One man said the house coppered him. Another family left in the middle of the night and never came back. For their furniture. No deaths on record. That was supposed to make me feel better. The storm cellar door outside was unlocked when I checked it, though I knew I hadn't opened it. The steps down were worn smooth, and the smell was stronger there. Dirt and iron and breath. At the bottom of the cellar was another vent. Bigger. The wind was louder there, moving in slow circles, brushing past my ears like it wanted inside my head. When I stood still, it stopped. When I breathed, it breathed back. I slammed the door and bolted it shut. That night, the house inhaled hard enough to make the lights flicker. The spare bedroom vent rattled violently. I heard something pushing against it from below, metal bowing slightly. The wind screamed now, not like weather, but like lungs struggling to fill. I covered my mouth, holding my breath. The sound paused. Then it began again, softer, careful, imitating. I realized then that every empty space in the house mattered. Open doors, unused rooms, gaps under furniture. The house wasn't haunted. It was hollow, and something lived in hollowness. I packed what I could the next morning, didn't go near the spare room, didn't open the cellar, left the keys on the counter and drove until the land stopped feeling flat. 2 months later, I saw the listing again. Same photos, same price. But one thing had changed. The spare bedroom was no longer empty. There was a bed in it now, neatly made, sheets pulled tight. The vent was gone. Sometimes, late at night, wherever I'm living, I feel it, the pressure shift, the air going still, and I catch myself holding my breath without knowing why, terrified that if I let it out, something will answer. The house near Possum Kingdom Lake was already unlocked when I got there. That should have bothered me more than it did. I was working cleanup contracts after foreclosures. Go in, document contents, tag valuables, clear trash. Most places were predictable. Dust, dead bugs, stale air. Echoes that made you feel like you were trespassing in someone else's memory. This one was different the moment I crossed the threshold. The smell wasn't decay. It was lake water. Cold, deep, mineral heavy. Like standing too close to the edge at night when you can't see the surface but you know it's there. The house sat uphill from a shoreline, trees blocking any real view of the water. 2-story, cedar siding gone grey, windows intact. No power. No signs of forced entry. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply. The living room was empty except for a wet footprint on the hardwood floor. Just one. Barefoot. Small. Facing inward. The wood around it was dry. I radioed my supervisor. Joked about trespassers swimming where they shouldn't. He told me to finish. Fast. Storm coming in. Lake levels rising. The kitchen had cabinets hanging open. Every drawer pulled out halfway. Like someone had been searching but forgot what they were looking for. The sink was dry, but rust streaked the basin like water had been standing there a long time. I noticed then that the house was quiet in the wrong way. No settling noises. No creaks. No wind through cracks. It felt submerged. Upstairs, the hallway carpet squished faintly under my boots. Not soaked. Just damp enough to notice. The bedrooms were empty. Closets stripped bare. One room had a large stain spreading across the ceiling. Dark and irregular, like water damage. But when I touched it, my fingers came away dry. The last door at the end of the hall was swollen, warped outward. It took effort to open. The smell of lake water was overwhelming inside. The room was filled with furniture. Not placed, stacked. Dressers, chairs, nightstands piled carefully against the walls, leaving the center of the room open. The carpet there was darker, flattened, patterned with overlapping impressions. Something had lain there many times. Against the far wall stood a large mirror. The glass was fogged, condensation clinging to it despite the dry air. I wiped a circle clear with my sleeve. My reflection stared back, distorted slightly. Behind me, something moved. I spun around. The room was empty. Then the carpet shifted. Not rising, not falling, rolling, like water under fabric. A bulge moved slowly from one side of the room to the other, furniture creaking as it passed beneath. I backed toward the door, heart pounding. The mirror rippled. My reflection raised its hand. I didn't. Cold rushed up my legs. The floor gave way, not collapsing, but softening, turning slick beneath my boots. I slipped, fell hard, and the dampness spread instantly, soaking my clothes. Water filled the room without pouring in. It rose from below. The walls darkened. The ceiling stain bloomed outward. The mirror fogged completely, then cleared again. This time, I wasn't alone in it. Figures floated behind me in the glass, pale shapes drifting slowly, limbs loose, hair waving gently. Their eyes were open, watching. The floor was fully liquid now, pulling at me, heavy and patient. I tried to scream and swallowed water that tasted like rust and depth and time. Hands brushed my legs, not grabbing, guiding. I kicked free and clawed toward the door, lungs burning. The water receded suddenly, dumping me onto soaked carpet. I crawled into the hallway as the door slammed shut behind me. The house exhaled. Downstairs, the front door stood open. Sunlight streamed in. Dry. Normal. I ran. 2 weeks later, after the storm, they found the house partially flooded. Structural damage. Declared unsafe. Scheduled for demolition. During teardown, workers uncovered something beneath the foundation. A sinkhole connected to the lake. And inside it, tangled in debris, were bones. Dozens of them. Some old. Some recent. The official report said accidental drownings over decades. Pulled under by hidden currents. No mention of the house. But sometimes, when the lake level drops low enough, locals say you can see a reflection on the water near the shore, not of the sky, but of a room beneath it, waiting to fill again. The house on FM 1976 wasn't listed as abandoned. It just stopped being lived in. You could tell by the yard. The grass was trimmed, the hedges cut back, the porch swept clean. Wind chimes still hung from the eaves, clinking softly when the breeze came through the oaks. From the road, it looked cared for, normal. The kind of place you'd expect a retired couple to sit out front drinking iced tea in the evenings. Except no one ever did. I was delivering propane tanks that route when I first noticed it. Same time every week, I'd pass by and see the porch light on, even in daylight. Curtains drawn but not dusty. Mailbox empty. No cars. No dogs. No people. After a while, it started to feel like the house was watching the road. I asked around in town. The clerk at the gas station frowned when I mentioned it. Said the family moved a while back. Couldn't remember when. Couldn't remember where. The sheriff was less vague. Don't go in there, he said flatly. House don't like visitors. I laughed, because that's what you do when someone says something that shouldn't make sense. He didn't laugh back. A month later, my truck broke down right in front of the place. Dead battery. No signal. Sun sinking fast. The porch light flicked on brighter as I stood there. Hood open, sweat cooling on my neck. The front door opened. Not wide. Just enough. A voice came from inside. Soft. Familiar. Truck trouble. It sounded like my mother. She'd been dead 5 years. I stood frozen, heart hammering. Every rational part of my brain screaming at me to run. But grief is louder than fear when it recognizes a voice it hasn't heard in too long. I can call someone for you, the voice said. Come inside. It's cooler. The air outside suddenly felt thick and hot. My head swam. I don't remember deciding to walk up the porch steps. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and old. Fabric. Comfortable. Familiar. The living room looked exactly like my childhood home. Same couch. Same end tables. Same family photos on the wall. Every photo included me. Some I remembered. Some I didn't. In one, I was older than I am now. In another, I was thin and hollow-eyed, standing in front of this house. My mother stood in the kitchen doorway, smiling gently. She looked healthy. Alive. Wrong. You look tired, she said. Sit down. I didn't. I asked her how long she'd been here. She tilted her head, confused. You brought me. The house shifted. A low creak ran through the walls, like bone stretching. I noticed then that every door was closed, even the ones that shouldn't have been. Brought you where? I whispered. She stepped closer. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor. Home, she said. This is where people go when they don't want to leave. The air grew heavy. The photos on the wall began to change, faces blurring, rearranging. I saw the gas station clerk, the sheriff, people from town, all smiling, all standing inside the house, all looking thinner. I started. You did, she interrupted gently. You thought about it. That's enough. Her hand brushed my arm. Cold, dry, like touching old wallpaper. The floor dipped beneath my feet. I felt myself sinking slightly, like standing on a mattress. The walls seemed closer now, breathing softly. From behind closed doors came sounds, quiet conversations, laughter, sobbing, lives being replayed. Stay, my mother said. We'll take care of you. I ripped my arm free and ran. The hallway stretched impossibly long. Doors flew open as I passed, revealing rooms filled with people frozen mid-moment, eating, sleeping, crying, staring at nothing. Some reached for me. Some mouthed warnings. The front door slammed shut. I hit it hard enough to bruise my shoulder. It didn't budge. Behind me, the house spoke. Not with one voice, with many. All familiar. All pleading. The porch light flickered. I screamed and kicked until the door finally gave, sending me tumbling into the dirt outside. The house went silent instantly. From the road, it looked empty again. My truck started without issue. I never drive FM 1976 anymore, but sometimes, late at night, when I'm half asleep, I hear my mother's voice coming from the hallway of my own house, asking me if I'm tired, and every door is closed. The house outside Tolingwood didn't show up on any map I owned. That wasn't unusual by itself. West Texas is full of places that fall through the cracks, old mining shacks, forgotten homesteads, structures swallowed slowly by desert and silence. But this one was different. It didn't feel forgotten. It felt avoided. I found it while surveying land for a solar company, miles from the nearest paved road. The desert stretched out in all directions, empty and unforgiving, mountains hazy in the distance. Heat shimmered off the ground. No cell signal. No sound but wind and the occasional creak of my truck cooling down. The house sat in a shallow dip, partially sheltered from the wind. One story. Adobe walls cracked and patched over many times. Tin roof rusted but intact. Windows boarded from the inside. The front door was wide open. Inside, it was cool, too cool. The air smelled like dust and something faintly sweet, almost medicinal. The floor was swept clean. No debris. No animal droppings. No signs of collapse. Someone had been maintaining it. The main room held a long wooden table. On it sat dozens of personal items arranged carefully in rows. Wallets, watches, rings, driver's licenses, phones, all sun-bleached, all labeled with small handwritten tags. Names, dates, locations. Every date was the same. The date I was standing there. I felt my mouth go dry. One of the tags had my name on it. I checked my pockets. Wallet still there. Phone still there. Watch on my wrist. But the handwriting on the tag was unmistakably mine. Same uneven slant. Same habit of overcrossing T's. A hallway led toward the back of the house. Along its walls were shallow niches, like shells carved directly into the adobe. Inside each niche sat a pair of boots. Work boots, hiking boots, cowboy boots, all filled with sand. Some had bones sticking out of the tops, ankles, yellowed and clean. At the end of the hallway was a small room with no windows. The floor was covered in a thick layer of fine red dust. In the center stood a chair facing the wall. Carved into the wall at eye level were thousands of tally marks. Some deep, some faint, some crossed out violently. I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, careful. I turned. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, thin, skin cracked and dry like sun-baked clay. His eyes were sunk deep, rimmed with red. "You're early," he said. "I don't," I started. "You always say that," he replied calmly. "Sit down." I noticed then that his shadow didn't match him. It stretched too far, bent at wrong angles, touching the walls like it was feeling its way around. "What is this place?" I asked. He smiled, showing teeth worn flat. "It's where people come when they wander far enough that the desert starts paying attention." My heart pounded. "I'm leaving." He nodded. "That's fine. Most of you try." He stepped aside. The hallway behind him was gone. In its place was open desert. Same mountains. Same sky. But wrong. The sun hung lower, redder. The air shimmered with movement, like something breathing just beneath the surface of the land. I took a step forward and felt the ground give slightly under my boot, as if it were made of ash instead of dirt. "You can walk," the man said, "but the desert remembers paths better than people do." I ran. The heat pressed in immediately, crushing, disorienting. Landmarks shifted when I wasn't looking. Hills flattened. Dry washes deepened into trenches. My footprints behind me filled in almost instantly. The sound started after a while. Footsteps matching mine. Sometimes ahead of me. Sometimes beside me. Never behind. I stumbled, fell hard, skin tearing on rock. When I pushed myself up, I saw the house again, right in front of me. The door open. Cool air spilling out. Inside, the table had one more item on it. My watch. Still warm. The man stood by the chair. "Takes a few tries," he said gently. "But everyone sits eventually. The desert doesn't like to be ignored." I don't remember sitting. I remember waking up in my truck, parked miles away on the highway, engine idling. It was night. Hours had passed. On the passenger seat sat a small paper tag. My name. Today's date. And somewhere, out past Lingua, there's a house with an empty chair, waiting for me to wander just a little too far off the road again. The house near Caddo Lake was already sinking when I first saw it. Not collapsing, settling, like it was tired and finally allowing itself to rest. The cypress trees around it stood knee-deep in black water, their roots twisting up like knuckles. Spanish moss hung low, brushing the surface of the lake, dripping steadily even though it hadn't rained in days. The air was thick, wet, buzzing with insects and something older. Locals called it the Brelin Place. They also said it wasn't on the lake when it was built. I was hired to photograph it for a historical registry before erosion took it completely. The job came with a waiver and a warning: don't go inside after sunset, and don't stay if you hear splashing where there shouldn't be any. The house was reachable only by flat-bottom boat. As I drifted closer, I noticed the water around it was perfectly still, despite the breeze rippling the rest of the lake. Reflections sat heavy and dark, as if the surface were thicker there. The front porch dipped slightly into the water. One rocking chair remained, legs submerged, rocking slowly on its own. I tied up and stepped onto the porch. The wood was slick but solid, warped from moisture, swollen. The smell was rot layered over something metallic, like pennies soaked too long in a jar. The front door creaked open with a gentle nudge. Inside, it was dim and cool. Light filtered through dirty windows, turning the air greenish. The floorboards were damp, some fully submerged where the lake had crept inside. Furniture floated gently, tethered by unseen snags. But the house wasn't abandoned. Plates sat on the table. A kettle rested on the stove. Muddy footprints, bare feet, tracked from room to room, leading toward the back of the house and disappearing into the waterlogged hallway. I heard a splash. Not outside. Behind me. I turned slowly. The water pooling across the living room floor rippled outward in a perfect circle, like something had just slipped beneath the surface. "Hello," I called. My voice sounded wrong, muted, swallowed. The hallway sloped downward slightly, water rising as it went. Family photos lined the walls, warped and buckled. The faces in them were blurred, smeared by moisture, but their eyes remained sharp. Too sharp. In every photo, the same people stood in front of the house. A man, a woman, 2 children. In earlier pictures, the house sat on dry land. In later ones, water crept closer, In the last photo, the house stood exactly as it was now, half submerged. The family was gone. Something brushed my ankle. I jumped back, heart racing, and saw a hand break the surface, briefly before sinking. Again, pale, bloated, fingers curled gently, like they were reaching for balance, not escape. The sound of movement came from beneath the floorboards. Not splashing, walking. Slow, deliberate steps moving through water-filled space below the house. I backed toward the door, but it was no longer there. The living room had stretched. The walls bowed outward, breathing softly. The water level rose another inch, cold seeping through my boots. Then a head emerged from the hallway water. A woman's face, grey and swollen, hair drifting around her like weeds. Her eyes were open, calm, intelligent. She smiled. "We tried to leave," she said, her voice bubbling softly from beneath the surface. But the lake kept following us. Behind her, others surfaced, children. A man, standing where the hallway should have been. Water reaching their chests. Their bodies were wrong, joints loose, skin stretched and translucent. "The house learned how to float," the man said. "And we learned how to stay." Hands rose from the water around me, not grabbing, guiding, steering me toward the center of the room, where the floor dipped deepest. "You're already in," the woman said gently. "You just haven't sunk yet." The water surged. I fought, splashing wildly, but the floor softened beneath my feet, turning slick and unstable. My camera floated away, bumping gently against the ceiling. The house groaned, settling lower, like it was adjusting its weight. Cold water closed over my chest, my neck, my mouth. In the dark water, I saw reflections, rooms beneath rooms, hallways stretching downward, filled with people standing calmly, waiting. The lake wasn't swallowing the house. The house was drinking the lake. I don't remember getting out. I woke up on the shore hours later, soaked, shaking, coughing black water. My boat was tied neatly to a tree. The house was gone. No debris, no wreckage, just open water and cypress knees breaking the surface. The registry cancelled the project, said the structure had finally collapsed. But sometimes, when the fog rolls low over Caddo Lake, locals say you can see a porch light glowing beneath the surface. And if you listen carefully, you can hear a rocking chair moving, slowly in water that should be too deep for anything to touch bottom. The house off Highway 16 near Bandera didn't have a name. Nobody called it anything. Locals just referred to it as that one off the hill. The place you pass when you're driving home too late. Windows rolled up, headlights slicing through the dark. I found it the night my cousin disappeared. We were camping near Medina Lake, fishing in the late hours. My cousin, Tyler, went to explore, said he saw something just up the road. He never came back. I searched for hours, calling his name, flashlight cutting through the night fog, until the beams caught a pale outline, two-story house, weathered wood, porch sagging, windows reflecting back the moonlight like eyes. The front door opened as I approached, not creaked, not blown by wind. Open, waiting. Inside, the house smelled like old paper and iron. Dust hung in perfect air currents, moving slowly even though the night was still. The living room was empty except for a single rocking chair, sitting in the center of the floor. It swayed slightly back and forth, though no one sat in it. The floorboards groaned with each step I took, though the house was silent otherwise. Walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them. Family portraits, holiday snapshots, people smiling. Some faces blurred, others scratched through with deep claw marks. But Tyler's face was there, always there, smiling at me, waving. I called out to him. No answer. I moved down the hallway. Each bedroom was empty, except for small items neatly arranged in the center of each room. Shoes, toys, broken glasses, a baseball glove. Everything looked normal, innocent. But the air felt thick, like the house was watching me, learning me. At the end of the hallway, a door, painted black. The smell coming from it was stronger, iron and wet earth. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to turn back. But I had to know. Inside was a staircase leading downward. Not a basement. A passage. Sloped, carved from the house itself. The walls here were smooth, wet, pulsing faintly, like the heartbeat of something deep inside. Water trickled along the steps. At the bottom, a chamber. Small, circular, lit by some unseen light that glimmered. Off the walls. And Tyler, standing, or floating. His feet didn't touch the floor. His body arched backward unnaturally, head tilted, mouth open in a silent scream. His eyes were black, empty, watching. Around him were others. Hundreds of figures, limbs twisted, standing, kneeling, crawling, each pressed into the walls or floor. Some wrapped in white sheets, some half submerged in shallow water pooled on the floor. Their eyes turned toward me, calm, expectant, waiting. The air shifted, thickened, cold and heavy, pressing against my lungs. A voice echoed, not from Tyler, not from anyone in the room, but from the walls themselves. Sit, watch, learn. I stumbled backward. The staircase had disappeared. Behind me, a wall, smooth, impervious. I tried to turn, but the figures had shifted, pressing closer. Hands, pale and thin, reached toward me. Not grabbing, not pulling, just observing. Tyler drifted closer. His voice finally came. Low, distant, mechanical. It's better down here. You'll see soon. We all see soon. The chamber shuddered. Wet walls undulated, stretching like skin over muscle. The light flickered. A deep, resonant thrum filled the space. The figures pressed into me, surrounding, waiting, not attacking, just present, patient, hungry for recognition. I ran. Somehow I ran. The staircase returned as I bolted upward, wooden steps splintering under my weight. The hallways twisted unnaturally, elongating and bending. Rooms I had seen earlier were gone. The photos on the walls now stared at me directly. Faces smiling impossibly wide, eyes dark and glinting. I burst through the front door into the foggy night. The house was empty, silent, unassuming. Porch light off. Windows blank and dead. I found Tyler's backpack outside. Empty. No sign of him inside the house. Or anywhere else. Only a note, carefully folded inside the pocket. I'm learning. Soon you will too. I left immediately. Never returned. Sometimes, when driving late on Highway 16, I see the house. Sometimes the porch light flicks on just long. Enough for me to see a rocking chair moving slowly. And I know, just like Tyler, the house is waiting, learning, and patient.